My name is Jensen. Let's learn some Microsoft Power Automate Desktop. Today we will look at Excel in Power Automate Desktop. We will see how we can read an Excel sheet, how we can use the data from the Excel sheet and type into applications or a website, and finally how we can update the Excel sheet back. Let's get started. So I create a new flow here. I can call it something like Excel example, and then I click create. While this loads, we can go back to our Excel sheet. Because here we got some columns and rows. The columns, that's first name, last name, up until rank. And then we have 10 data rows with corresponding data. We want to read the data here and populate it into an application. First, we will just use a Notepad document, but afterwards we will type it into a CRM system. Let's get started. So here we have our flow. The first thing that we will need to do is to localize where we store our Excel sheet. I store mine here on the desktop. So if I go back to the flow, the first thing that I will do is to get special folder here. Then I will drag that in. We will be getting the desktop, but we could use a lot of other common folders like program files or cookies or history. But we will use desktop as that is where my Excel sheet is on. The power of this action is that if this flow goes to another user's computer, then it will find his or her desktop and use that. You will see that we produce a variable called special folder path. We can call this variable afterwards and then it will call my desktop, or actually the user's desktop. So click save. Then we need to launch Excel. So we search for a launch Excel here and drag it in. We can launch Excel with a blank document, or we could choose to open the following document. And what do we want to open? Well, we want to open our Excel sheet. So up here in document path, the first thing that I'll do is to click the FX here and use the special folder path. Double click that. And that's not enough because this is only my desktop. We need to specify what file we want to use. So use a backward slash, and then we can say mine is called data.xlsx, right? Let me go back and show you. Or actually I will click save first. Then we'll go back and we can see here that it's a data and it's an Excel file. So we go back. We can even open this launch Excel again. And we can see here that we produce a variable called ExcelInstance. We will refer to that. So then we just click save. And now we need to know, because we have an Excel sheet here, we need to know where the first free row is. That is row 12. We can of course see it, but we don't know because this Excel sheet could be dynamic. And we want to know where the first free column is. That's here, because we will use that in our flow. So go over to actions and then search for get first free column row here. Choose this one. Get the first free column row from Excel worksheet. You will see here that we will read into our Excel instance that we created up here in Launch Excel. And we will produce two variables. We will produce the first free column and the first free row. That is integers. So it will tell us that this is row 12 and this is row I, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's it. So we click save here. And now what we want to do here is that we want to read from the Excel sheet. So we'll search for a read from Excel worksheet. That's it. Drag it in. Here. What do we want to read? Well, we want to read the Excel instance. That's right. We got it up here in the launch. That it will be the sheet with the data in. That's fine. We can either choose to retrieve single cell values, or we can click the drop down here because we want a range of cells. That's it. Then we can choose the start column and the start row. Let me show you the Excel sheet. We want to start up here. So we want to start in column 1, row 1. So here, 1 and 1. And the end column. Well, we know that we want to end 1 before this empty row and 1 before this empty column. How do we do that? The first thing that we can do is that we can use the two variables that we produced up here in the get FirstFreeColumn and row from Excel sheet. So we can click the FX here. So the end column, well, that will be the FirstFreeColumn. However, this will be one too much, because then we will end here and we will get a blank column, and vice versa with the row. So what we do here is that we can go in here and then we can simply just say -1 like this. The same thing we can do with the end row. So click the FX here, say FirstFreeRow, double click it, and we'll say -1. That's it. Then we know where to end. Then we can read the first line of range. Is that containing column names? Well, certainly it is. We have column names up here. So activate that. We will now populate data, and that will be stored in ExcelData. That's it. So we click Save. Now we actually read our Excel worksheet. We read the entire data. Let's try to populate it into a Notepad. So we will search for a action, populate text in window. Here, populate text field in window. Where do we want to type it in? We want to type it in here in the Notepad. However, we need to create a UI element for that. We could either do it over here if we haven't opened up this action, or we can do it directly in this action. So in here in the text box, click the drop down. We can see that we have no UI elements to display. We have not created anything. So click the add a new UI element like this. Now you can see that we can find different parts of the UI, and we want to populate it in here. So when you have highlighted this is red in the border, then you click Ctrl and left click. Now you can see that the selector over here is created. So we click Done. You will see that the selector is automatically filled in here in the text box, and then we can choose what text we want to fill in. Well, we just want to fill in the Excel data that we created up here in the read from Excel worksheet. So click the FX, choose the Excel data, then click Save, like this. We could have a display message, some sort of a log message telling us that the workflow is done. So find a display message, drag it in. The message box title, well, we can call it something like log message. What do we want to display? We want to say something like entry updated. Imagine that this application is very advanced and we just want to tell the user that we have updated the entry. So then we click Save. What we need to have now is a close Excel, because if we don't do that, then the Excel sheet will be locked for editing, and we don't want that. So always choose a close Excel. We want to close the Excel instance. Do we want to save it? Well, in this workflow, we are not updating the Excel, so it doesn't matter. However, we will update it later. So choose the save document. You could also choose to save it as another name here, but we'll just take the save document, then click Save. Now let's close this one here. And what we can do here, up here in the Launch Excel, we can see here that the instance is visible. We could choose to make it not visible. However, for this example, we will make it visible as it is. Now we can close down the Excel sheet here, like this, and run our flow. So Power Automate is running. It will take a few seconds into reading the Excel sheet here. And remember not to touch the mouse or anything, because we will populate text field in the UI. As you see here, you can see how quickly it goes, like this. And we have our log message, and Excel will close down in a few seconds. So we can click OK here, and the workflow is done. However, you saw that we got the display message, and then when we click the display message, then the Excel sheet closed down. If we want to change that, we can just easily drag the display message down here. So we close Excel first, and then we have the display message. I don't have any preferences, but do as you want. Let's make it more applicable. Now I want to iterate through each row of the data in the Excel sheet, and then I want to populate it into my CRM system. My CRM system is just a demo application, very simple. However, the intuition is the same as if it has been Salesforce or Dynamics. So let's look at the data and see what we want. Here we have our data again, and we want to take each row and then we want to populate it into the CRM system. However, let's just take first name and last name here. Otherwise, it will just be boring, repetitive work, which we're trying to avoid. So we'll see that the column names, that is first name and last name. Then we can close down the Excel sheet. We go back to Power Automate. So we will delete this Populate text field in window because that was the Notepad. So click delete, like this. Then we will need a for each here and drag it in. Take it right after the read from Excel worksheet and before the close Excel and the display message. What a for each does is that it can iterate values into a data table. And here we can say, what do we want to iterate? So click FX and we will choose the ExcelData, like this. We can see that the variables produced, that's a CurrentItem. So each row will be iterated, and every time the row is populated, then we will have a CurrentItem, and we can work with that. Let's see how that is done. We click Save. Now we can see that we have a for each and an end. So let's try to populate the two fields, the first name and the last name, in our app. So what we'll do here is that we'll do as before, populate. By the way, I try to speak a little bit slower because a lot of you had told me that I speak too fast. So tell me if you're satisfied with the speed of my voice, and also if there's anything else I can do better, I'll be happy to hear that. But let's take a populate text field in window. So drag it in here in the for each. So now we need to create new selectors, and we can create both at the same time. So click the drop down here, click the add new IU element. You can see that the one from before is still here. We could have deleted it. However, let's just let it stay. But it's always good practice to delete old UI elements that you no longer need to use. However, let's just add a new UI element. We need the first name here. So Ctrl left click. We can see that over here, we can see that we have the selector. Now we can just take the other one as well. So click Ctrl left click, and we have the two fields that we need. So then click done. First, here we need the first name. So click the drop down and choose the first. What text do we want to fill in? Well, now we can refer to the CurrentItem that we are iterating through up here. So click the FX and take the CurrentItem. However, we don't need the CurrentItem because that's the whole row, so we need to specify what column we want from. And we can do that by making these hard brackets here. And then we can say single quotation mark and then the column name. So here it was first name, single quotation mark, and then the end hard bracket like here. So that's it. That's how we populate each row with the first name. So click save here. And then we can do exactly the same thing as up here. So let us drag in another populate text window. Click the drop down here. Now we want the last. What text do we need to fill in? Well, that's just the same as before. So click the FX, take the CurrentItem, and then we need to specify what column we want. So we do just as before, just with the last name here, like this. Then we can click save. Now we are done with this workflow. Let us open the CRM and we can see that it actually works. We are reading the Excel sheet. We are populating the fields in our CRM system. You can see here that it's actually Michael Robertson, Doug, Derek, and so on. So it will take all 10 rows and populate these fields. Like this, we have completed the use case. So click OK. Now let's look at condition in the ExcelData. So let me open up the ExcelData again here on my desktop. Say that let me move it over here. Say that for each row of these entries, we want to look at the rank. If the rank is bigger than 8, then we want to do a comment of high ranked. So it will only be John Smith and Doug Derek, right? Let's create that in Power Automate Desktop. So close this data and go back to the flow. The first thing that we'll do is to move the display message into the for each, because we will use that as a breakpoint. That is, it will stop the workflow every time an iteration has been done, and we can use that when we want to inspect the data. So let's move it in here. We want to add the condition. We still want to type in the first and the last name, and then we want to have a condition. So in the actions, find an if. Drag in the if just below the populate text field in window and above the display message. So what do we want to look at? We want to look at the CurrentItem here and the rank. So again, these hard brackets. By the way, I think they are named hard brackets, but if you know a better name for them, please tell me. So here we can just say rank and hard bracket. So we will look at the rank. Then we will say if that is greater than 8, then we want to do something. We can see here that we have our if and the end if. If it was greater than 8, then we wanted to fill in this field here. So we'll just do as before. We will find a populate text field here and drag it in the if. So what do we want to fill in? We need to create a new UI element. So click here, left click and Ctrl. We can see we got it up here, the selector. Click done. Like this. What do we want to fill in? Now we will fill in a static text. So we can just say hi ranked. Then we click save. That's it. But because this is a very simple CRM system, actually it's only a demo app, then we want to clear this comment section so we can see that we will actually have something updated. So we will have another populate text field. We will have that in the beginning. We will use the selector from before, and we want to have empty data in. How do we do that? Well, we have 2 percentage signs and then 2 quotation marks. That will be a blank. So we just click save. That's it. Now we can try to run the flow again. Remember, we have made a breakpoint down here, the display message, so we can verify our data. And remember, we only had 2 high ranked members, but let's click run. We are reading the ExcelData, and soon we will go into our for each loop. Here, John Smith, he was high ranked. That was right. We can even open up the Excel sheet. We can see that indeed John Smith was high ranked. Doc Derek was also high ranked, so let's see if our Power Automate flow will figure that out. Now it will be Jane Dorsey. Nothing spectacular with her. Albert Kipling, nothing as well. Then it will be Michael Robertson here. And now it will be Doc Derek. Like this, he was high ranked. Well, there's no need to continue the rest of the rows here, as nothing will happen. It will just update first and last name, so click stop. Now, let's say that we want to target in our Excel data here. We want to target sheet 2. I have some other data here. You'll see that it's only 2 rows, Anders Jensen and Jens Andersen. Let's see how that is done. So we can close down this again. What we want to do is that we want to set the active sheet here. We will do that just after the launch Excel. So we will refer to the Excel instance again. That one was from up here. Then we can activate the worksheet. We can say name or index. This one will be name. The worksheet name, that was sheet 2, and we can click save. It will still refer to the Excel instance, so we don't have to change anything down here, and we can simply just run the workflow. Anders Jensen, he's high ranked, that's fine, and then we will have Jens Andersen as well. That's how you change it to another sheet. Finally, let's write something back to our Excel sheet. We want to update the processed column when we have made the entry in our CRM system. So let me click OK here. We will close Excel. So again, let's open the data. Here, we want to update this. So we just want to type something like yes in here when it's processed. Again, let's close down the Excel and open the Power Automate flow. We will need to introduce an index variable into our for each. So the first thing that we will do is to set a variable here. We can simply just place it right above the for each. It doesn't matter as long as it is before the for each. So let's call it NewVar. And the value should be 2 because we want to read the second row that's just right after the headers. So that's why we take 2 here. Save. Now we need to increase the variable. So when we go into the for each, then the value is 2. That is, we want to look at the row 2. However, next time it will be 3, 4, and so on. So we need to increase the variable. So find a increase. Here. And we will put that in the end of the for each. So the variable name, that was NewVar, right? Here. What do we want to increase by? We want to increase by 1. Then click Save. So now we have our index variable. We know that we have a number and that corresponds to the row we want to target. So right after the end of the if down here, then we want to write something to Excel. So we'll find a write to Excel here and drag it in down here. We want to write to the Excel instance. That's fine. What value do we want to write? We will just write yes, right? Then we'll say a specified cell. That's fine. The column, well, that was column I. That was the processed column, big I. Then we want to target the row. And now we have the number as the row was. That was our new var. So click the FX. Choose the new var. Like this. We'll click Save. We could also choose to update the display message. That was our log message. So open that. Oh, sorry. Let me drag it down. Here we just say empty entry updated. And then we can say entry. Then we can say number. And we can call our new var because that was the row. So let's say that the row corresponds to an entry. So we'll say new var like this and a space. That's it. Let's see this workflow in action. Here, Anders Jensen, high ranked, entry 2 updated. However, that was a little bit wrong because we could actually argue that this was entry 1 because that was the first one. However, it was in row, so let's just keep it that. If you wanted to have entry 1, then we can just say in the new var, we could say -1. Then you would have an entry 1 here and afterwards 2. Then click OK. We'll have the Jens Andersen. Updated. Fine. We will close Excel. And if you go out to the data, you will see that we have processed both items. Boom. That's it. If you want the next lesson in this guide, just click the video to the left. If you want my beginner's tutorial for Power Automate the web part, then click the right. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the new future videos. Have a good day. Bye bye.